Hello, it's Paulus, the Cabaret Geek here, and today I'm talking about intimacy in cabaret. Intimacy is one of my 4 pillars of cabaret, and if you look back to the origins or etymology of the actual word cabaret, it means, among other things, small room. So back in 1881, when the Chat Noir in Paris, the very first cabaret was created, this idea of a small, intimate space was key. Now, that's not to say that you can't create a cabaret or create an intimate environment in a great big hall, but I do believe it's more difficult to do so. And there's something about the setting of a cabaret, not just the size of the room, but also the fact that people are often sat around tables, and on those tables there'll be a lamp or a candle so that your audience is illuminated. And it's quite common to have the house lights just up just the tiniest amount in cabaret. I know I certainly prefer that when I'm performing cabaret, so that the audience out there, the other side of the lights, are not just a faceless sea of heads, but that you can pick them out as individuals and still engage with them on that one-to-one level. Perhaps the biggest deal about intimacy when it comes to this work is the question that we all have to face eventually, which is how much of our personal life, personal opinions, we're prepared to share with a bunch of strangers the other side of the lights. I think there's something really scary and raw and exposing about the work that one can do in a cabaret, because there isn't a director, because there isn't a writer often, and because there's no character between you and the audience. It's just you and the audience. That's it. They provide everything else. What they turn up with on the day is your script, is your director to a certain extent, and that's a bit like free fall. That's the unknown. I don't know how much preparation you can make for that. I go on stage with my tool belt full of things that I know work after 30 years of having done it, little quips, little riposts, little retorts and stuff like that. But to know exactly what you're going to do and what you're going to say and how that's going to land is rather at odds with the immediacy and the uniqueness that many cabaret audiences are seeking out in the first place, and a delight in experiencing when they're in a cabaret room. And I believe that that immediacy, that unique one-off performance often comes down to how much the performer is willing to share of themselves. I try, when I teach cabaret to people, to liken the relationship between audience and performer to be one of 2 old mates sitting in the snug of an old-fashioned English pub over a pint. Maybe they only meet up once a year, these mates, and they're catching up, having a good old moan about their husband, or, telling the other person how much their mother's ruined their life, or whatever it is, or political views. Point of view is another one of my 4 pillars that I'll be doing a separate video about very, very soon. So the first thing, if you're interested in cabaret and have never done it before, is to ask yourself that question: how much am I willing to share of myself? I think the biggest thing I've come up against in 20 years of teaching, from 18-year-olds to 95-year-olds, this work, is the feeling that they don't have anything to say, the people that I work with, and to give people permission to have a platform, to speak their mind, to have a point of view. Again, that's for another time. But all of this is linked to the intimacy that we create. So just start letting that gestate, and sitting with the uncomfortableness that it might bring up for you. And I don't want anybody that I work with or teach to, overshare, to deal in things that really should be dealt with on a therapist's couch. That's not what I'm suggesting at all, but a simple statement of how you're feeling genuinely that day to an audience, when heartfelt, when honest, is quite revelatory to a lot of audiences, and very, very different from going to see a slick show that's choreographed every second of it and scripted every second of it, and doesn't have any room to breathe. There is a dialogue with an audience, a cabaret audience. Even if you're standing on stage alone, it should be a dialogue, not a monologue, that you're trying to achieve with your audience. And the last thing I say to myself before I step out on stage on cabaret is I stand the other side of the curtains and I say to myself, expect nothing, accept everything. And then off I go into the unknown. And there's nothing more intimate than being scared to death. Anyway, those are my thoughts on intimacy and their importance in cabaret. Please do subscribe to find out more about cabaret and the Cabaret Geek, and tell me what you think of this video. Get involved, and I'll see you next time, if we're safe.